A small village called Wadon, located in Ngawi, East Java, Indonesia, was known for its distinctiveness. The village was populated by women only. There was no single man living in there, though it did not mean they could not have a male significant other. Their male partners were not allowed to settle within the village, as they believed it would bring bad luck. Whenever the villagers were pregnant and gave birth to a female, the infant would be part of something precious to the village, because the more women live in there, the greater the chance of Wadon village to become affluent. But on the other hand, whenever they gave birth to a male, they had to prepare and give the infant to the guardian goddess that resided in the teak forest surrounding their village. The forest was named Rakajati. The legend said there were goddesses that lived inside the forest to keep Wadon village out of any danger, especially from men. Not many people could pass through it safe and sound. Most of them that made it through would live in a great anxiety that eventually led into their own downfall. But the story was denied by the people of Wadon village, because they never experienced such incident whenever they went in and out of the forest. There were a few people from other villages who believed in the legend, and there were also those that did not. But no one other than the Wadon villagers that knew about the tradition of sacrificing male infants. Fathers of these infants that were delivered by the women of Wadon village would be given information that women of Wadon could not give birth to a male. Those who were pregnant with a male would only lead to stillbirth. Wangi, a female that just turned 20, lived alone in Wadon village as a florist. She had a relationship with a guy who lived in Watu Pawan village that was pretty far from hers. His name was Selatan. Wangi had to ride a horse at least for an hour or two to reach his village. When her relationship with Selatan had almost reached 2 years, the relationship had gotten intimate, but somehow she never got pregnant. One night, on her journey back from Watu Pawan village, she heard a muffled cry by the wind. She got off her horse and slowly walked towards the noise. With confusion, she found an infant wrapped in a dirty white blanket. She picked up the infant and tried to calm it down. She sang a lullaby until the infant stopped crying. She warmly smiled at the infant with its round eyes, the curled lashes, and the thick black hair.
So pretty,
thought Wangi. But then she was stunned when she found out that the infant was a male. Her mind immediately went to her village's tradition, and suddenly she felt a shiver through her whole body. There was no intention in her to sacrifice him. She had a sudden desire to take care of the infant until he became an adult. So she brought him home with her and told the villagers that the infant was a female. Luckily, Wangi was one of the most trusted villagers, thus no one questioned her any further. So that was the beginning of Netra's story, the only male who lived in Wadon village. Netra grew into a beautiful female with round eyes, thick eyelashes, and jet black hair that grew up to his shoulders. He had no idea that he was different from other people in the Wadon village, including his best friend, Intan. Intan was the daughter of the Wadon village chief, Citra, the one who was trusted by the guardian goddesses in the Rakajati forest to keep the tradition going. She had an important role to deliver infant males to the goddesses as sacrifices, and this job later would be passed down to Intan. That was what Intan told Netra when they were playing on the riverbank just behind the village.
Well, does that mean you are one of the most important people in this village then?
Pretty much.
Intan answered.
By the way, because today is my birthday, can I ask something from you?
Netra blinked his eyes as he looked at Intan's direction.
Sure, what is it?
Intan took a breath.
Look, this is going to sound weird, but will you go swimming with me? Without any clothes on?
Netra gasped, shocked at Intan's question.
I don't mind, but my mother wouldn't allow us to shower together and have sleepover with you guys, you know?
I know,
said Intan.
but please, just this once. It's just me here. Please, I'm begging you. As my birthday present.
She pleaded. Netra was quiet for a moment before he inhaled and stood up.
Alright.
Intan got up on her feet with excitement as she slowly stripped herself down, followed by Netra's movement. With nothing else covering their bodies, they both were shocked at the sight of each other's different physical appearance. Netra was the first to ask why Intan did not have a little trunk between her legs, which Intan answered that this was the first time she had ever seen one, since she had been with her friends a lot, whether when they were swimming in the river or trying each other's clothes in their closets. And Netra never joined them, because his mother never allowed him to. Ignoring their confusions, Intan and Netra started to play in the river, tossing and joking around. As the sky got darker, they went their separate ways to go home. When he arrived home, Netra was still thinking about Intan's words, how he was the only one that had different physical features from the rest of their friends. So he asked his mother, Wangi, about this at dinner.
Mother, I want to ask you something, but promise me you won't be mad.
Wangi put down her spoon to focus on Netra.
Of course. What is it, my child?
Early on, I was swimming with Intan without any clothes on.
This astounded Wangi, but before she could utter a word, Netra had cut her off.
I'm sorry, Mother, but why am I different? Intan said I was the only one that's different from our friends. Do you know about this? If yes, why would you hide this from me? Why, Mother?
Questions were firing from Netra that confused Wangi and made her speechless. She knew this day would come and Netra would find out the truth eventually, but she did not know how to prepare herself to face it. Tears filled in Netra's eyes. This confusion made Wangi wanted to cry as well. Wangi hurried herself to sit down beside Netra, who kept shrugging her off and asking the same questions over and over again as she tried to calm him down. Wangi took a deep breath, still struggling to keep her child together. She tried to look Netra in the eyes and said,
Netra, the reason why I kept this a secret from you is because you're a male.
A male?
asked him confused.
Yes, Netra.
She answered, stroking her child's cheek gently.
This village does not allow any male to live in here because it could bring bad luck. It has been guarded by a goddess in Rakajati forest. Those who give birth to a male have to sacrifice their infant to the goddess and...
Wangi's speech was cut off by Netra with tears streaming down on his face.
So, you raised me only to sacrifice me later?
No, Netra. That is not what this is. Please, listen to me first.
Nonsense! You just want to annihilate me!
Cried Netra before he went off, leaving Wangi, who tried to chase after him, but she could not catch him up. The occasion was witnessed by a few villagers who still had activities outside of their houses, and one of them was Chitra, who rushed herself over to Wangi.
Wangi, what is happening?
Netra, we had a fight and she ran off. She went to the woods. Chitra, please, help me. You know Goddess Battery well enough. Please bring Netra home for me. Please, Chitra, I'm begging you.
Wangi pleaded while tugging at Chitra's arm in frustration.
But why? She'll be fine. You know that Goddess Batari only attack males, right?
Wangi went silent as she listened to what Chitra said, and with a smirk, Chitra continued.
Or you know that something bad will happen to Netra because he is a male?
Wangi's eyes widened.
How did you know?
Chitra chuckled.
Oh, I knew, Wangi. I knew that since you brought him into this village. But I did not want to say a word.
Her voice was loud enough for people around to hear.
But why?
I just want to know how far you can carry this lie. And look at what happened. Your only child, that in fact was not even yours, now has turned its back on you because of your selfishness.
Chitra shoved her arm, which was held by Wangi, and made her fall to the ground with tears streaming down on her face in the middle of the crowd.
I'm going to go to the forest to see how Netra is doing. You stay here and pray that he is alright, even though there is a possibility that he has met Goddess Betari and already gone.
Then she took her horse and went to the forest, leaving Wangi, who was still sobbing, surrounded by the villagers. Netra did not remember how long he had been running. His mind was racing, his gaze was blocked by an army of tears. He could not think straight. How could his mother lie to him all these years? No wonder Netra always felt suspicious whenever his mother forbade him to play with his friends for no apparent reason. Netra often found himself feeling like an outcast because he had no clue what his friends were talking about. Intan was his only friend who was still kind to him. Suddenly, Netra lost his balance after bumping into something or someone. He fell on the muddy ground, blood pouring from his arm. He raised his head, looking at someone standing in front of him. A beautiful woman with long white hair. She was wearing a white dress that covered up to her feet, and she was shining. The light around her gave off a turquoise color. She stood quietly before bending her body slightly, holding out her hand for Netra.
What is wrong, pretty child? Are you lost?
No, don't eat me!
Netra dismissed the goddess's hand while trying to stand back up, but he was too afraid and instead held up his arms to cover his face.
Eat you?
The goddess asked, confused.
Are you having a laugh? I do not eat humans. I only eat plants from this forest.
But you are a goddess, right? My mother told me that you, the goddess of the forest, will eat me because I'm a male.
The goddess raised her eyebrows. She wasn't expecting such a thing.
So, you have heard the story?
So, it is true?
Netra gulped.
You will eat me?
The goddess let out a chuckle, then slowly took a seat beside Netra, trying not to scare him away.
No, that is only a myth. I am Batari, assigned to protect Wadon village from various kinds of harm, especially from men. The myth is spread so that men from outside would not dare to enter the village, because this village is only populated by women. Many of the men who came only wanted to take advantage and conquer the village.
Bethari explained while taking Netra's arm and healing his wound.
Besides, I do not eat humans, let alone men. I just make it impossible for them to pass through this forest to Wadon village.
Bethari smiled warmly as she nodded.
Look, I healed your wound, which means you are fine now. Now do you believe? What is your name, beautiful?
Netra. My name is Netra.
Netra said while sitting down and looking at his arm that was clean from blood and wounds.
And yes, now I believe in you. Thank you, goddess.
Then Bethari took Netra to sit on the edge of a small lake surrounded by other goddesses who emanated light and dressed like Bethari. What distinguished them from Bethari was the jet black color of their hair. Bethari explained that these goddesses used to be residents of Wadon village, and they came to Bethari asking to become goddesses as well, so they could always protect Wadon village, but in exchange they lost their ability to speak.
My power is not strong enough to make them true goddesses, but I saved their vocal cords and turned them into fireflies that live near this lake. Sometimes we can hear their voices singing, but I cannot have a conversation with them, so it gets really lonely here.
Bethari said, staring at the goddesses and flying fireflies. Netra followed Bethari's gaze and innocently asked,
Are you happy that I'm here, goddess? Talking to you?
Bethari stroked his head.
Of course, Netra. The lake no longer feels quiet and lonely with you here.
Netra chuckled, which was a sign that he was happy meeting Bethari. She then gave Netra a red apple. He took the apple eagerly and stuffed it into his mouth. He could taste how sweet and juicy it was on the first bite. Netra felt lucky to be able to eat the apple because it tasted different from the apples he usually ate. The sweetness melted on his tongue as if honey was injected into the apple. It made him addicted and felt the need to constantly eat the apple. As a kind gesture, Bethari gave him a full basket to take home.
Thank you, goddess Bethari. I'm also glad I met you.
Bethari looked at Netra before asking,
Netra, how old are you?
Netra swallowed the bit of apple in his mouth.
I'm turning 12 in 2 weeks, goddess.
Bethari sighed and looked softly at Netra while patting his head before her attention shifted to the voice of Chitra who came calling for Netra. Chitra jolted at the sight of Netra sitting with Bethari and hurriedly ran to the two of them. She pulled Netra to her side and apologized to Bethari for Netra's audacity coming to Bethari.
Oh, it's fine, Chitra. Netra and I are good friends now. Are we not, Netra?
Netra nodded happily before Bethari continued saying,
Netra, the day you turn exactly 13 years old, will you see me again?
What for, goddess Bethari?
You are a special child, Netra. I want to give you a little of my power as a gift, but that power can only work when you turn 13. Will you come to see me again?
Really?
Netra gasped, imagining what kind of gift he would receive.
Of course, goddess. I will come to you again on my 13th birthday.
Chitra, who was confused by the encounter, could only stare at Netra, who nodded enthusiastically.
All right. Now, will you give us a moment? There is something I want to talk with Chitra.
Bethari said, followed by Netra's nod, while he ran outside the forest. Bethari turned her gaze towards Chitra, who was petrified. Her gentle gaze turned dark, her whole eyes turned black, the light around her body turned dark red in wrath, and Chitra could only stand there trembling while lowering her head.
I will forgive you for hiding a male all these years if you bring the male back on his birthday within a year. Prepare him well, or I swear I will make your lives miserable. Do you understand?
Yes, goddess. Forgive me. One of my villagers...
I do not want to listen to your excuses. Do you understand or not?
Yes. Goddess, I understand.
Bethari went back to her original form, light turquoise, like river flowing calmly. Then she allowed Chitra and Netra to return home, before she went to sit by the lake, staring at the goddesses who were mute because their tongues flew as fireflies.
Ever since that day, Netra had been living under Chitra's care. With screams and cries, Wani begged Chitra not to throw her into the dungeon and keep her away from Netra, because what she did was a fatal mistake that almost put the village into a risk. Netra did not cry at all, because he felt betrayed by his mother for lying to her own sake, though he did feel a slight sympathy towards her. Day after day, Netra passed as a male. Rati, the village tailor, had made various kinds of clothes and pants for Netra to use on a daily basis. He no longer needed to wear long dresses or skirts. He no longer needed to do chores, although there are times when he did help Intan, but had been dismissed by Chitra instead. That did not stop Netra enjoying every second of his life as a male. However, he did not cut his hair short, rather left it shoulder length. Netra wondered why his mother kept his true identity a secret and lied to him. For almost a year, Netra felt more free than ever, and he was treated like a king by the villagers. Even Bethari occasionally came to see him and brought him a basket of apples. He did not know why his mother lied to him about the goddesses in the Rakajati forest, when in fact he was treated very special by them. A year had passed, and not a single day had Netra seen or heard his mother's condition. Nor did he ask Chitra. Even though she treated Netra very well, there was something in Chitra that made Netra uncomfortable. A small knock on the bedroom door interrupted his thoughts. He saw Intan peeking through from behind of the door before she walked in slowly to sit on the bed, which confused Netra.
Netra, I want to tell you something. Please don't be mad at me.
She whispered in a nervous voice, then continued her sentence after Netra nodded.
The truth of the day when I asked you to swim with me without clothes on, it was my mother's order. She also asked me to tell her what I saw.
Netra could only stay quiet and listen.
I am sorry, Netra. I didn't know it would be like this. Your mother is in prison and you will be made a sacrifice tomorrow on your 13th birthday.
Netra frowned.
What do you mean? I'm not going to be sacrificed.
Intan bit her lip. Then she pulled the book from behind her and gave it to Netra.
Here, I found this in my mother's room.
This is my mother's diary since she was a child. From this, I know Goddess Betari lied to you. From what I've heard, she actually eats all the males. But she made an ultimatum with our villagers to only eat infant males born to villagers to save their male partners. But
Hesitated. She continued.
she really likes 30 years old males because that is the age when a male matures and she hasn't gotten it for a long time.
Netra widened his eyes in shock. His heart suddenly pounded and his body went cold. There was a worried look carved on Intan's face before she spoke again.
But listen, Netra, I found this.
She turned the pages in the book.
See, my mother wrote that the villagers in the past, assisted by their male partners, tried to kill Betari, but no one survived, and she was still alive even though her vital organ was injured. So my mother concluded only a 13-year-old male could kill her, because she likes them very much, but she only eats infants from this village.
Intan looked at Netra sharply.
And you, Netra, you are the hope of the village to be free from the shackles.
Netra was silent, trying to process each word of Intan's explanation. He then asked frantically,
But what if your mom was wrong, Tan? What if I don't make it?
Netra, you can do it. I believe in you. As far as I know, your mother will be out of the jail on the day you leave. Come back for her. I will wait for you with her here. Please, Netra, come back.
Intan hugged Netra tightly. Her tears broke with the thought of losing her best friend, but her heart calmed a little with Netra's hug and his gentle nod. She believed that Netra will be fine. The next day, when it was almost dusk, Netra went to the Rakajati forest after giving farewells to the villagers, who escorted him to the gate. He repeatedly inhaled and exhaled the air, so that his pounding heart could calm down. Then he saw thick bushes full of sharp branches on the way. He took a sharp branch from the bushes, before he continued to walk to the lake where Betari lived. Not long after he was walking with sweats on his temples, and his heart was still beating fast, he saw the goddesses greeted him with joy while dancing and surrounding him. Netra tried to smile and join the dance with those who escorted him to the shore of the lake, where Betari sat with a gentle smile on her face.
Welcome, Netra. I have been waiting for you for a long time.
Netra smiled a little, covering his anxiety as he positioned himself by Betari's side.
I'm sorry for making you wait, Goddess Putri.
Betari smiled, caressed Netra's long hair before taking out a necklace from her apple basket.
Happy birthday! This is a gift for you. I put a little of my power here. From now on, you will be protected from all kinds of danger.
Betari gave the necklace, which had a pendulum made of rosebuds that have not yet grown. Netra held the necklace. He examined it from the string which was made from the tree roots to its rosebuds.
Thank you, goddess. It's so beautiful.
Come here. Let me put it on for you.
With his heart beating even more, Netra slowly approached Bethary. Her cold fingers touched his skin, making him shudder.
Today, let's celebrate your birthday. I have prepared a lot of apples. Your favorite.
Bethary presented a large basket of fresh red apples to Netra, who only smiled and nodded at her. He had no appetite at all. They spent the entire night talking and joking. Due to his hunger, Netra got carried away. He took one of the apples and ate it. Once he swallowed it, the pendulum necklace that Bethary had given suddenly bloomed and sprouted, and the thorns stuck into Netra's skin.
Ow!
Netra pulled the necklace by force of his neck, knocking it on the ground.
What are you doing to me?
He shouted. Bethary just smiled. No, she smirked.
That is my gift for you, Netra. Because you have become an obedient child.
She said while her long white hair had suddenly darkened. Her pale face slowly turned scaly. Her eyes were completely dark, and her turquoise light around her dimmed red like the blood. Netra was petrified at the sight. While trying to endure the excruciating pain in his chest, he slowly moved away.
Come here, sweet child. I bet you will taste delicious with all of the apples I had given you during this whole year. I patiently hate waiting for you to grow, longingly waiting to eat you whole.
Bethary turned into a creature similar to a snake. Her entire body was covered in scales and her canines were elongated. In the midst of his fear, Netra forced himself to run away from Bethary.
Where are you going, sweet child?
Bethary said, wreathed her body swiftly after Netra. However, the faster Netra ran, the more he felt his legs weakened and heavy. Bethary laughed behind him as she watched Netra who had fallen to the ground.
You cannot run from me. I had put poison that could paralyze you in the apple you ate.
Bethary was getting closer. Her hands began to grip Netra's neck.
You beg, let go of me.
Netra fought off with all his might, but Bethary's grip was tightened. Slowly, she opened her mouth wide, revealing her sharp teeth. Netra struggled and tried to grab something from the pocket of his pants, and took out the sharp branch he had picked up from the bush. Seeing that there was a gap in Bethary's chest, with the energy he had left, Netra struck the sharp branch right into Bethary's heart.
Ah!
Bethary screamed. She released her grip and began to roar in pain.
What a brat! You should be thankful. I let you live this long.
You should stop intimidating my villagers with your stupid rules.
Shouted Netra angrily. With the remaining strength, Netra ran towards Bethany and lunged at her to push the branch that was still in her chest deeper, until she could no longer move and finally stretched out with black blood that kept pouring out of her chest. Netra stared at Bethany's lifeless figure with panting breath. His body had gone numb, and his eyes felt heavy. Suddenly, his vision blurred out, and he fell unconscious. There was a sound of birds chirping, welcoming a quiet morning in Rakajati forest. A sunlight woke Netra up, who was fast asleep. He blinked, slowly got up and felt a pain from his chest. After fully awake, Netra gasped in surprise to see the goddesses overwhelmingly surrounded Netra.
What do you want?
He asked suspiciously, clutching his aching chest. The goddesses stared to each other until one of them broke the silence and gently said, "We want to thank you." Netra was shocked hearing them speak for the first time. Still in disbelief, he asked,
For what?
The goddesses smiled warmly. "We are the real guardians of this forest. One day, Bethany came to curse us. She took our voice and forced us to serve under her command. We could not do anything until someone came to kill her." Another goddess let out her soft voice. "We are the ones who guard the village long before Bethany came. We never asked humans to return the favor. We just want your crops for us to eat and plant in this forest. But now, we are free, thanks to you, little one." Another goddess came slowly approaching Netra. "The people of your village are also free from the obligation to offer sacrifices, and men are allowed to stay there. Thank you very much, Netra." The goddesses began to crowd it and thanked Netra. One of them stroked Netra's head, and others tried to treat the wounds on Netra's body. Netra smiled with relief and happiness, because he had succeeded in helping the goddesses as well as the residents of Wadon village. And now, it was time to go back home. That day, the sun shone brightly, but the heat did not pierce through the eyes, as if it was celebrating the victory of a village. Netra walked with the goddesses back to the village, feeling happy, safe, and sound. "Netra is back!" yelled one of the villagers after seeing Netra walk through the gate. "What? Netra is back? Impossible!"
Netra?
Wangi, who had been released from the dungeon after Netra's departure, threw away the flowers she had collected from her hands and ran towards the gate of Wadon village. She saw her son in his dirty clothes, surrounded by goddesses and villagers who were busy cheering for him. She ran through the crowd before grabbing Netra and hugging him tightly.
Netra, is this really you?
She was crying as she cupped Netra's cheeks. She could not believe what she saw.
Yes, Mother. This is me.
Netra smiled, his tears flowing down unstoppable.
I succeeded in releasing this village, as well as the good goddesses from the curse of Putri. We're safe, Mother. We're safe. We'll be fine from now on.
He leaned his forehead against his mother's and hugged his beloved person tightly.
Netra! Netra!
Netra glanced behind his mother. only to see Intan and Citra running to them.
Intan!
Netra, you're alive! Netra, you did it! You did it, Netra!
Intan jumped into Netra's arms with joy. She embraced her best friend, and she could feel herself breathing a sigh of relief.
Netra, thank you.
Citra slipped. She slowly approached Netra, who looked back at her.
Thank you for fighting for us.
She turned his gaze to Wangi.
Wangi, I'm sorry. All this time, I allowed you to raise Netra because I knew this day would come. Sorry I didn't tell you. I'm afraid you would not let Netra go for this, so I have to do what I had done.
Citra's eyes were seen filled with tears and guilt. Wangi looked at her in disbelief. There was a moment of silence between them before Wangi took Citra's hand and said,
I forgive you. Thank you, Citra. Thank you.
Netra smiled warmly at the conversation as he put his arm around Intan's shoulder.
I'm glad we're all fine.
Since then, Wadon village had been filled with new people. The fathers of the residents, as well as their spouses until death do them apart. The village of Wadon had become much more affluent than before. All thanks to the goddesses from the Rakajati forest, the crops of Wadon village were fresher and thriving. Many years had passed. Netra had become a man who was admired by his mother, Intan, as well as all the other villagers. They lived side by side for a long time with a feeling of safety that was always with them. They could not ask for a better life than this, because what they had was enough, and all because of Netra's existence.